Could I just ask everybody to stand up for 1 second? Just let's stand up and stretch just real quick. All right, James and I just want us to get in about 10 steps, maybe 10 or 15 steps. We're going to be sitting for a while. I know this seems annoying, but you're going to thank me later when you're close to 10,000 and you want to get across. Okay, thank you. So let's get a quick show of hands. How many people here are wearing fitness trackers of one kind or another? And how many people are wearing Fitbits? Pretty good number. So I'm a brand new Fitbit user myself, about 1 day, but James and I just checked it out. We were synced up totally on our pulse rates right before we came out here, which is a good sign, I think.
Kind of freaky, actually.
It was kind of freaky.
Yeah.
Freaky good, though.
Yes,
Right.
72 beats per minute.
Okay. So James co-founded Fitbit in 2007. First product debuted in 2008. Last year, you had an IPO. Price the shares at $20. When I looked this morning, the shares were trading around 43. It's been good. So my question for you is, it's been a busy time, but what's been more exciting lately, having your company suddenly be worth close to $9 billion or crushing the Apple Watch?
So we went public a month ago. In terms of Apple, I like to be respectful of all our competitors, and in general, I think this is an overall pretty huge market opportunity. There's over $200 billion of consumer spending on health and fitness products and services. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for more than one company to be really successful in this category. In terms of market cap, I think that's great, but we can't really control what the public markets do with their stock price. So we're just focused on making sure that we're always creating pretty awesome products.
According to the most recent numbers I saw, it may be a little early to judge on the Apple Watch. I was being a little cheeky, but you had numbers saying that you had 85% of the market share in the U.S. fitness tracker market based on dollars spent. Last year it was around 70%. So you really are the dominant market player right now. And part of my reason for bringing that up is yesterday we had Henry Kravis here, and he said, his advice for big tech startups is if they don't need cash, he wouldn't necessarily advise them to go public, because why deal with the tyranny of quarterly earnings? Why was it the right time for Fitbit to go public last month and for you to be a public company now?
A lot of different reasons. We weren't afraid of going public just because operationally we felt the company was in a pretty good place. We'd actually been profitable for quite a while, even on a GAAP basis, which I think is pretty rare for companies going public. The company has been around for over 8 years, so we definitely wanted to give liquidity to our early investors. Secondly, I think we're pretty excited about the fact that we could use public currency to be more aggressive in terms of M&A. So I was actually pretty excited to take the company public.
Yeah. What about the actual process of preparing for the IPO? How did that affect your steps? How did that affect your pulse and your sleep?
The roadshow was pretty interesting. I think there's going to be an article about all my biometrics that were tracked during the roadshow process. It'll be, I think, some interesting insights. You could definitely see my heart rate spiking during some contentious meetings. I won't go into why they're contentious, but definitely investors have very strong opinions about your business. And my response was, well, if you don't like what you're doing, you don't have to invest. So I don't think they like that answer.
Well, so far, Wall Street likes what you're doing. The early reviews from analysts this week are very positive. But how do you feel, having gotten through this process, had a very successful IPO, about the idea of reporting earnings every quarter? Right now, your PE is super high. Your business is on a growth trajectory, but what if you have a rough quarter? I mean, what's your outlook?
My outlook is never to have a rough quarter.
Okay.
And things take care of themselves. So not too worried about the quarterly cadence. I think there's been a lot of commentary about how the focus on quarters really is detrimental to companies and their long-term potential. But I think it's possible both to execute very well financially on the quarterly side and also be very thoughtful about how you're laying out your long-term product and strategic roadmap. And as long as your roadmap's pretty solid, you have a great pipeline of products and services coming out, I think the quarters will just take care of themselves.
I want to get to that pipeline and that roadmap that you have in a minute, but I just wanted to ask you, and in your bio, it still describes you as a serial entrepreneur. You started 2 companies before Fitbit and had some different experiences. Do you still think of yourself as a serial entrepreneur, or are you re-imaging yourself as a long-term CEO?
Yeah, so that bio needs to be updated.
Okay.
I'm meaning to do that. Definitely don't consider myself a serial entrepreneur anymore. I truly think Fitbit's my lifetime mission. It's been really fun over the past 8.5 years, and I think there's a lot of innovation left to do in the category.
My colleague Lee Gallagher has a story in the current issue of Fortune about Brian Chesky at Airbnb and his approach to sort of teaching himself to be a CEO, seeking out people he can learn lessons from. What's been your experience? Have you followed a similar process of kind of like finding people, mentors, or just people that could advise you, who could sort of help prepare you for where you are in the process now?
I don't know about mentors, but definitely we've had a great board. So John Callahan from True Ventures, Brad Feld from Foundry, and more recently Steve Murray from SoftBank. All have been on the board for quite a while. I've learned a lot from them and from their experience. Also try to read a lot, but I'm trying to learn every day about the best ways to manage people, to lead a company. I think people just have different ways of figuring out what the best path is for them.
Mm-hmm. Part of the lore of Fitbit is that you and your co-founder Eric started it after you were inspired by the Nintendo Wii in 2007, and you saw the potential for sensors to help create new products, and you started the company right away. I'm just curious why you think that Fitbit has kind of emerged at the top of the heap for now. I mean, Nike's been in it, Garmin's been in it, Jawbone, of course, has been in it. Now Apple's in it in a certain way. Mm-hmm. What is it? Is it just the name Fitbit? It's fun to say, but what gives you the advantage, or what do you think has been the secret to your success?
Clearly the name. I mean, we bought the name for about $2,000 from some guy in Russia, paid him via PayPal. So that was a pretty interesting bidding experience, I think.
How many bidders were there?
I think it was just me, but
okay.
I asked him, so how much do you want? And he said, 10,000. And I said, how about 2,000? And then he said, sure. So that was pretty much the deal. And then I remember
that guy's kicking himself right now.
Yeah, probably. Could have asked for equity. But I remember us testing the name too. Back when Facebook allowed people to create user polls, we ran a poll that had Fitbit and some other really now pretty stupid sounding names, and Fitbit tested the best. So that's why we went with it. But more serious, definitely it's more than the name. Fitbit's all about the combination of hardware and software, and I think those 2 aspects are pretty challenging for a startup or any company to do pretty effectively. And I think a lot of our past and current competitors have found a lot of challenges in trying to create pretty compelling connected device products. We've also focused a lot on distribution as well. I think physical retail is still a pretty important part of consumers' purchasing behavior, regardless of all the hype around online e-commerce. So our products are sold in over 45,000 storefronts in over 50 countries, and channel marketing has been a key driver of our success. So being able to combine hardware, software, distribution, pretty efficient sales and marketing, and having that all work well together has gotten us here.
I want to remind everybody we'll have time for some questions, so get ready to ask them in a few minutes. But a couple other things I'd like to cover. I mean, you come across as a really nice, straightforward guy about what you're doing. Not the kind of guy I would necessarily expect to get sued, say, 3 times in the period of a couple months. But in fact, Jawbone has sued Fitbit 3 times in the last 2 months, alleging clandestine efforts to steal talent and trade secrets. What's the deal with that?
Jawbone should probably create a new feature that tracks how many lawsuits they file in their app. In general, I can't really comment on ongoing litigation, but as a market leader, we prefer to compete and innovate in the marketplace as opposed to innovation. I don't think anyone likes to see their capital go to lawyers, even though I like working with our lawyers. They're great people. And overall, look, I think innovation is not just reflected in the number of patents you have, but success in the marketplace. And I think we've done pretty well in both. We have over 200 patents that we've been issued or have filed. In fact, I'm personally an author on 93 of our issued patents. We have 85% market share. So I feel pretty confident in the path that we've taken. And I respect our competitors, however small or large they are. And I hope that they choose to compete in the marketplace as opposed to the courtroom.
It does bring up the issue of talent, which I wanted to ask you about real quick. For a long time, you really ran Fitbit as a lean operation. It was just you and your co-founder and maybe a few other people, and you really controlled your money spend. And now that has really changed lately. I mean, you were just telling me that you had about 500 people at the end of last year, and now it's over 700. How difficult are you finding it to find the talent that you need to ramp up at the scale you're looking to ramp up now? And how much of your time are you spending on that?
Historically, we've been pretty lean, primarily because we've always had difficulty raising capital. I think investors, 5 to 8 years ago.
Again, people that are kicking themselves right now.
It's water under the bridge. Yeah, moved on. So we were basically forced to create a pretty efficient way of running the business, and it's been great because now we have a lot of operating leverage in the company. I think the great thing for us is that we've never really had a lot of difficulty attracting talent, primarily because of the mission of the company. We're not developing ad products. We're not, we're developing products that really help people become healthier, more active. It's a very positive mission, and it's allowed us to attract a great team of people.
Mm-hmm. Now, your revenue really jumped from 2013 to 2014. Your trajectory is really steep. Some people have looked at your S1 filing and interpreted some of the numbers that there's a high churn rate among users of fitness trackers, and that many people stop using it within a year. We see some big projections for the potential size of the wearable fitness tracker market. Like the Piper Jaffray put out a report that there could be, over 230 million customers in a matter of years. What's the reality? Are people going to is this a fad that people are going to experiment with for a while, or do you see it becoming really ingrained in almost every American's daily life or people around the world?
Yeah, so consumers are definitely taking a much more active, proactive approach to their health and fitness, and I don't think that's a fad. I think that's a very strong secular trend that's going to drive a lot of growth in a lot of different companies in this whole category. And while press and analysts focus on Fitbit as a wearables company, the mission of the company is actually a lot broader. We're all about how do we use technology to help people become healthier, more active, giving them data and inspiration and guidance. And we're pretty agnostic about how that's done. It could be in the form of devices that are wearables, devices that are not wearables, software and services. So in that sense, I think what we're clearly doing is pretty profound and well beyond the fad. In terms of retention and engagement, I think that always has to be put in context. If you compared us to, let's say, a gym membership, where I think 70% of gym memberships are actually never even really used, and most people maybe go to the gym, utilize their gym membership for the first 2 or 3 weeks. In that context, I think devices like the Fitbit have incredible engagement and retention. And what we've seen is that the social layer on top of these devices is pretty powerful. The more friends you have, the more active people are, and the longer they stay on the platform. So that's something that we're heavily investing in on the software side, is to really improve the social experience.
You mentioned before potential acquisitions. Right now, Fitbit has 6 fitness tracker products. You started out with like a very basic, kind of like a pedometer, and it's gotten progressively more feature-oriented. This is the Surge that you're wearing and that I'm wearing, which has got a watch and a lot more functionality. How rapidly do you see expanding your portfolio of products? I know you made an acquisition a few months ago for a company that does video-based exercise experiences. Right. So where do you see your portfolio going? Will it expand beyond just things we wear?
I can't comment too specifically, but I always go back to the mission. We're pretty agnostic about how we execute against our mission, and it could be wearable devices, non-wearable devices. In fact, we have one non-wearable device today in the form of our ARIA connected body composition scale. We're going to be investing a lot in software and services. We acquired Fitstar a few months ago. Over 2/3 of our R&D is in software versus hardware. So we'll be doing a lot of different things across both hardware and software services.
Should we expect to see some acquisitions in the next few months? You got things in the works?
Can't say.
Okay. When you try to communicate to customers something like how they use the ARIA with the Fitbit, is that an easy sell? Do they get it?
It is. I mean, I think a great way to become more healthy is to watch what you eat, lose weight, become more active. So I think our tracker products and our ARIA scale work pretty well together. And we have internal studies that show that people who have both of our devices actually end up losing more weight than if they have just one of them. So I think there's a lot of data to support that case.
Now, I have a lot more questions, but I want to go ahead and open it up in case because I feel like there's going to be a lot from the audience. I see some hands, so we'll go right here. Remember to introduce yourself quickly before you ask the question.
Sure. Hi, Sarah Johnson. I'm from Herman Miller. We're an office furniture manufacturer. My question for you is with the focus on consumers, do you see your company shifting its focus into the workplace and how wearables can help with fitness at work?
We do. In fact, the fast-growing part of our business is what we call our corporate wellness business. So right now, Fitbits are deployed in pretty large numbers across over 50 of the Fortune 500. And we're helping employers assist their employees in becoming more active and more healthy. And in the case of large self-insured employers, reducing their direct healthcare costs. So that's a big focus of the company.
Are you going to them or are they coming to you?
Historically, it's been them coming to us. There's a lot of awareness amongst consumers and therefore employees, and it's kind of a grassroots effort.
I think we have some right here. Okay. I see another hand in the back, too.
James,
Could you identify
Dan
yourself,
Levitan
please?
from Mavron. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs? You kind of mentioned it was tough to raise capital. Here you are in 2009, 2010. You kept going. You persevered through it. I'm just curious, what did you focus on? How did you do that? And what advice would you give entrepreneurs who have similar challenges?
I think have a high tolerance for pain. I don't know. I think
Can you measure that on the
we should, but special entrepreneur edition. I think people get, I think what I see right now is people wrap up their sense of success and identity with their prowess in fundraising and comparing themselves against how their peers are doing. I think that's really the wrong way to look at things, and it leads to kind of non-optimal outcomes. For instance, I don't know if the valuations that companies are getting today is necessarily healthy for the company themselves. And for us, again, our inability to raise capital actually forced us to be very disciplined in how we think about the operational metrics of the company. And that's allowed us to be pretty successful. If you look at our S1, our operating leverage is pretty high. And that's a direct result of having to be pretty lean in the early days.
I think it might be interesting to go slightly deeper on that, going back. As I understand it, when you were really kind of building the company and it was a small team, you did a lot of outsourcing of the manufacturing, obviously, but really were like in it yourselves. Like you were over in Singapore and Indonesia for months at a time, overseeing the process, really rolling up your shirt sleeves. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, because that seems unique to me.
Yeah, so when Eric and I started the company, we knew nothing about hardware. That's probably also why we never got funded, I think, because people didn't trust us that we could build a hardware company. But it was several years of very intense learning. So I know Gadi, who's the president of New Deal Design, R&D firm, is in the audience over there. But we tapped a lot of experts in the field, got introduced to manufacturers. Eric and I spent a lot of time overseas in Singapore and Indonesia, spending time there months at a time, bringing up the production lines. Actually, I never want to go back to an Indonesian factory because The bathroom situation is pretty bad. I have pictures.
Important learnings.
Yes, yes. Avoid Indonesian factories.
Yeah.
But I think the great thing is it allowed us to learn a lot of different aspects of the business. And where that got directly reflected was in the early days being able to hire the right people, knowing the right questions to ask. And as a result, we have a really great management team who's been with us from the early days. There's been zero turnover in the management team, whether it's in ops, sales and marketing, et cetera. And I think, again, that's a result of the fact that Eric and I have a pretty good understanding of how all the different pieces of the business work.
Other questions? Right back here. Thank you.
Olaf from design firm Fjord. Congrats, first of all. You've done a great job. You were early in what's now a very, very hot space, and you're doing extremely well, so congrats. One of the things I've admired from the early days with Fitbit is your approach to data, how you've used standard measures rather than sort of proprietary measures, and you've had a pretty open approach to data. And from a people perspective, it can be confusing when you have proprietary measures rather than standard stuff like steps and calories and so on. And it's also very frustrating when you have data captured in one context that you can't then actually use in another context, or you can't mesh it up with other data. What's your view about where the future is going with data? Because that's something that will actually impact all sorts of different businesses, not just health and wellness, but businesses in general, interoperability of data and sort of freedom of data. What's your view?
Yeah, my general comment on that is historically we've had a very open approach to our data. We've had an API almost since the very beginning of the company. We have several thousand third parties that have integrated with our API. We're pretty flexible in our terms of service. But that also has to be balanced with the privacy and security concerns of our users. So the other thing that we've done is be fairly clear in our privacy policy that one, we'll never share data or sell data to third parties. And whenever we do share data, it's only with the explicit opt-in consent with our users. So I think that's been a good balance that we've struck over the years.
Other questions? There's a hand in the back, if we could get a mic over there. She's been raising her hand for a while.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Bryant. I'm from Black Girls Code. My question was, what's your vision really for the Fitbit moving from just a fitness device and really being able to tap into this field of biometrics and personalized health and go a little bit beyond just being a tool for fitness and health, but really going deeper into being a really tool that I could wear and tap into my personal health issues with all of the vast improvements and research in that area. Is that a vision for Fitbit, or will it really stay on this fitness track?
And to add on that, are we going to have implanted Fitbits in 5 years?
I don't know about the implanted side. A lot of regulatory issues there and consumer adoptance issues. But I don't think it's a dichotomy between fitness and health. I think there's an opportunity to do both. And what's more interesting is a blending of the two. I think part of the success of Fitbit has been the fact that we've really tried to consumerize more health and medical-based technologies. If you think about the state of even tracking devices or pedometers when we started the company, you had devices from like Omron, which counted steps, and they looked like medical devices. Very accurate, but I don't think it was something that consumers were excited to wear. So I think challenge for us in any company is, even as you track more advanced metrics across fitness and health, making it something that people are excited to wear every day. A great example of how we've done that is our partnership with Tory Burch. Tory designed a line of exclusive accessories for the Fitbit Flex product. When we announced it, ended up selling out within 3 hours. So since then, she's developed more accessories. That's been a great partnership. We'll probably do a lot more on the fashion front. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity in fusing technology, fashion, fitness, and health, and making it not only very useful for consumers, but again, something that people are super excited to wear and have as part of their daily lifestyle 24/7.
Great. Well, we're going to have to end it there, unfortunately, but that was a great way to end the conversation. And join me in thanking James Park.
Great.